Hey guys, this is Illusion PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Jason Todd's Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Week by Slenderboo. This is Chapter 7. The JLA Zeta Tube Room. You could hear a pin drop as Wonder Woman, Superman, and the other Leaguers all stared at Jason with varying degrees of horror. Bruce cursed his decision to adopt children. "Why are all of you up here?" he sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "About that," Tim started. "Well," Dick tried to say. "It's Hood's fault," Damian accused, glaring at Jason. "Out of everyone here, this is the least my fault," Jason shot back, sticking his tongue out at his youngest brother. "I'll explain when his dickhead isn't being held captive by Diana, and I'm not about to be arrested." "Already out, don't worry." Dick stepped out of Diana's grasp, cuffs falling to the floor easily. He hopped over to his brother, shooting Jason a worried look. Can you deal with that last one?" Jason had slid down the wall, rubbing his forehead. He looked disheveled, greasy hair plastered to his forehead and a bruise forming on his cheek. "Batman, do you know these people?" Wonder Woman asked sternly, shooting a glare at the Robins. "Yes, I do." He swept over to stand between his children and the League. "I'll ask again. What is going on?" "We arrested Hood on suspicion of running a trafficking ring," Wonder Woman explained. "We were forced to keep him in the Watchtower cells after he revealed he knew our identities, and threatened to release them." "When did all this happen?" Bruce remembered which trafficking ring she was talking about. He'd been investigating it before he'd gone on mission, leaving it to his children. Clearly that went well. "Last week on Tuesday. I was surveying a toxin storage warehouse when they scooped me up." Jason cut in before Wonder Woman could say anything, voice tinged with annoyance. "And I wouldn't have played that I know your identities card if they hadn't threatened to send me to Arkham, so don't even start." "You threatened to send him to Arkham?" Dick echoed, glaring at the League. "I'm sorry, are we ignoring the fact that Red Hood just called Batman Dad?" Flash pointed out. He'd pressed a hand to his sword wound, blood dripping from between his fingers. "Which Bats didn't contest at all. Not to mention, that would make Nightwing... the red one," he pointed at him. "And the angry child with the sword, his kids too." At his description, Damian started to draw his sword again with a snarl, which Tim pushed back into its hilt quickly. "Yes, they're my children," Bruce replied tiredly. "We can discuss further in the hall once I made sure none of my children are too badly injured." The League, specifically Superman and Flash, visibly flinched. "By your reactions, something happened," he deadpanned. "Oh, something happened, all right." Dick's voice was uncharacteristically angry, glaring at Flash in particular. "Don't worry, we'll have time to go into that later, Big Bird." Jason stretched from his spot against the wall, pushing himself to his feet and attempting to take a limping step forward. Tim looped his arm around his own shoulder, supporting his brother's weight despite being a lot shorter than him. "Thanks for the help, but I'm fine, Red." "A little help here?" Tim asked, ignoring Jason completely to turn to his dad. Bruce easily picked up Jason, ignoring the incredulous stare of the League and his son's angry grumbles as he swept across the room, his other sons trailing after him. "Dad, I can walk. My ankle's not that broken," Jason quipped, squirming in Bruce's arms to shoot him a glare. "You can put me down." Despite his annoyed tone, he relaxed into his hold easily, heaving a small, barely audible sigh. "Don't be an imbecile, Hood. Your ankle is sufficiently broken." Damian sniffed, discreetly taking Jason's hand in its own. Jason gave his hand a small squeeze, not letting go either. "I don't know about sufficiently broken, Boy Wonder." "Sure, kid." The Dark Knight stopped when he made it to the door, gesturing vaguely for the League to follow him. They ended up in the hall in the Watchtower, the line of Robins plus Batman sitting on one end of the large oval table and the League, well, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman sitting on the other. Jason had been placed in the middle of the bats, Bruce and Damian to his left, Dick and Tim to his right. "So," Wonder Woman said hesitantly. "So," Bruce echoed. "Can we introduce ourselves first after this, miss? I doubt our secret identities matter all that much anymore," Tim cut in. "Hood doesn't even have his helmet anymore, and other than you, he's the most strict about identities." Bruce mulled it over for a second. Fine. One of the reasons I didn't tell the League my identity earlier was to keep them from discovering you, so I don't see any harm in it. Any security risk is mitigated by us knowing your identities too. Bruce stripped off his cowl, smoothing his unruly hair. He hadn't taken his suit off after arriving on Earth from his mission, instead directly beelining for a Zeta to check in with the League. Stellar idea on his part, since he managed to walk in on his sons being arrested, but he was really getting sick of the costume. Bruce Wayne? Flash blurted, slapping a hand over his mouth. I'm sorry, you were Batman? What? Old news. Introduction time. Dick took off his domino, smiling cheekily. Dick Grayson, B's eldest. I was the first Robin, but right now, I'm Bloodhaven's and occasionally Gotham's very own Nightwing. You're a vigilante, Superman said, nodding with realization. We initially assumed you stole the batarangs you had on you, but this makes a little more sense. My turn? Finally, I've been waiting to take this off all week. Jason peeled off his domino mask, dropping it onto the table with a look of mild disgust. Jason Todd, formerly dead, currently Red Hood. I'm the second eldest and second Robin, after Dickhead. Formerly dead? Wonder Woman repeated. Yep. He popped the pea, letting his head loll to the side boredly, as he looked at the League with the piercing blue-green eyes. Long story, not worth going into. Well, Batman having an undead crime boss son was not something I had on my League bingo card, Flash quipped. Former crime boss, Jason grumbled. After I got over the whole beheading thing, I went back into vigilantism. The crime boss thing is just a cover. We're all vigilantes. Tim pulled his own domino off. Tim Drake, pleasure to meet you. I'm the third Robin, currently known as Red Robin. I'm sorry, what's a Robin? Aquaman said. Batman's sidekick and protege. Changes every couple of years, Dick explained. There's been 5 of us overall. The angry child with a sword has the mantle right now. I am Damian Wayne, Bruce's only biological child, Damian said next, flicking his mask at Dick and sticking his tongue out at him. And the current true Robin, as Grayson said. Didn't say that, but sure, Damie. So, Batman straight up adopted 3 kids? Flash half-stated, half-asked. Well, more of us, actually. Signal, you know, plus Spoiler and Black Bat. Dick told him with a smirk, watching the League look increasingly concerned. Spoiler was the 4th Robin, but she got fired after roughly 2.5 months. Speaking of which, I should alert them we found Jay, Tim said. B? Bruce nodded and Tim disappeared down the hall with a small wave. 7 kids? Superman looked at Bruce with the utter look of betrayal. How did we never know this? It was never any of your concern, he replied simply. All of them, save Dick, currently operate in Gotham, which I've clarified time and time again is my concern. Which leads me into my next issue. Why you entered Gotham in the first place. I agree, Wonder Woman suddenly looked tense, gaze shifting to Superman and Flash. Gotham's trafficking rings were influencing Metropolis and Central City. We were already working on that issue before you left, but on Monday night we found out about Red Hood's involvement and decided to intervene in your absence. We figured you'd want us to watch Gotham in the meantime, as is the League protocol whenever anyone goes on an off-world mission, Superman supplied. Oh, he'd completely forgotten about that. Damn it. That was miscommunication on my part, Bruce admitted, pointedly ignoring Dick and Jason's shit-eating grins to his left. They were definitely going to use that against him until the end of time. I was so wrapped up in the investigation and the mission, I forgot you didn't know about my team in Gotham, which is why I didn't outright ask you to watch the city. In the investigation, surely you wouldn't have expected us to drop it until you returned. Jason usually handles most infiltration jobs because he, as he mentioned before, still has a reputation as a crime lord. Bruce gestured to his second eldest. A few days after the ring emerged, I sent him to survey the operation and take it down. He would have been finished by Wednesday. So, what you're saying is, Superman started, pinching the bridge of his nose. Instead of holding the head of the trafficking ring hostage for a week, we instead held your son, who was there to take it down in the first place the day before he would have done it. Yeah, Jason confirmed simply. Sounds really, really stupid when you put it like that. Superman leveled him with an annoyed glare. Why didn't you say anything? Would you believe me? Jason shot back, glaring right back at the Kryptonian. That, and B has a strict, don't tell the League about the Bat family rule. I may be a former crime lord, but even I'm not fucking stupid enough to break a rule like that. Jason, you're allowed to break any of my rules if your life is in danger, Bruce told him, concern leaking into his voice. That's as true for you as any of my other children, no matter what you did in the past or whether or not you follow my rules normally. Jason turned his head away. Dick told me the same thing this morning, he said, voice dropping nearly to a murmur. I don't know. It didn't feel right. I figured if I said anything, they'd think the others were criminals too and bring them in. And, hey, getting my ribs broken once or twice to make sure my siblings are safe is a trade-off I'd make any day. How injured are you? Bruce leaned over, tilting Jason's head towards him gently and checking his eyes. You have a concussion. Moderately, Jason said, keeping his voice light. Definitely not the worst I've had, but that's kind of a redundant statement. Dick flinched at the last sentence. Anyone care to enlighten me what happened to my son? Bruce growled, turning his glare into the League. The atmosphere of the room went from semi-tense to as if someone had dropped a grenade in the center of the table. Superman and I had to bring him in by force, Wonder Woman conceded. Our intention was not to hurt him, but we did. Intent won't heal my ribs or unconcuss my head, princess, Jason cut in. And you need to replace we with I. Clark didn't do anything as far as I remember, unless it was his bright idea to try the lasso on me. That actually was me, Superman admitted with a small voice. Which, sorry about that. Don't sweat it, Smallville, Jason waved him off. All you did was burn track marks into my wrist, but at least you're better than Barry. What did Flash do? Damian asked. Oh, funny you should ask. That signature redhead menace entered Jason's voice, smiling cynically in a way that didn't reach his eyes. He managed to give me another concussion, re-break my ribs, and snap my ankle like a fucking twig. In my admittedly very meager defense, I got microdosed with anger toxin for 2 weeks straight, and broke a canister of the stuff right outside your cell. So, Flash tried to defend himself, but just seemed to make it worse. Jason's eyes flashed a toxic green, lips twisting into a snarl. You beat me with a metal bar to try to get me to tell you where Tim was, all for an anger toxin antidote that doesn't even exist yet. He growled. I thought you were going to fucking kill my little brother if I told you anything. Forgive me if I was a bit uncooperative because of that, Flash. Flash was saying something now, but Bruce could barely hear it anymore. How dare anyone, let alone someone who called themselves a hero, beat his son with a fucking metal bar? You what? Bruce growled, cutting the Scarlet Speedster off. Yeah, I can really see how that comes off, but... Stop talking. Diana hauled Flash to his feet with a glare. Aquaman, take Flash to medbay before he bleeds out. I'm not even bleeding anymore, Flash tried to say, but Aquaman grabbed his arm and pulled him out of the room with a curt nod. I'm going to be having words with him. Bruce did his best to compose himself, but it was difficult as he saw Damian reach over Bruce to capture Jason's hand again, squeezing it tightly like a lifeline. Please tell me you at least reprimanded him? Dick glowered in his seat, shaking with barely suppressed anger. He placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, rubbing small circles into it with his thumb. He's currently suspended for a week, and after that he'll be put on probation for 3 months, she explained. The only reason he's still in the watchtower is to make sure the lasso properly filtered all the toxin out of his blood. I'm sorry, a week suspension and 3 months probation for nearly beating someone you were holding captive to death? Dick burst out angrily, shooting to his feet. Dick, sit down. Bruce shot his son a glare, which turned 1,000 times more threatening when it turned on Wonder Woman and Superman. He was pissed, supremely so, but if they were going to hit them, they were going to hit them where it hurt. And after hearing what you put my son through, tell me, why shouldn't I quit the league here and now? Superman paled. Wait, B, why shouldn't I? He asked again, this time more forcefully. The moment I leave on a mission, you enter my city without permission, take what you believe to be a Gotham crime-based captive without looking into him sufficiently beforehand, and injure him in increasingly violent ways for a week straight in a misguided attempt to get information. Clearly you have no respect for the lives of criminals, so I'll ask again, why should I waste my time working with you ever again? Silence. B. As satisfying as it is to hear that after the week I had. Jason started, any green malice gone from his eyes and voice. I don't think you should leave the league. Todd, Damian tried to say, hand ghosting on the hilt of his sword, but he was cut off. Don't get me wrong. They're definitely stupid shitheads, but as far as I can tell, they didn't actually try to hurt me. Well, this badly, on purpose, he explained, much to the chagrin of literally everyone in the room. Diana busted my ribs when she captured me because she thought I was a metahuman, which apparently would make me resistant to blunt force trauma. Technically kinda am, but not enough to withstand fucking Wonder Woman. I admit to thinking he was more durable than he really was, she said hesitantly, cheeks coloring pink. I was under the impression that he had a metagene, not that he was enhanced by the pit. Exactly. Still fucking hate you, Di. Jason shot her a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But yeah, that's basically what I'm getting at. Also, the reason Barry was so high-strung was because in the wake of him becoming the worst teammate ever, and testing positive for scarecrow toxin, these dipshits cut him off from the investigation, which is what led him to committing Ethiopia 2.0, because that's what anger toxin and 2 weeks of constant stress does to you. Can you please not call it Ethiopia 2.0? Dick muttered. They don't even know what it means. Sure, Jason replied breezily. Can't promise I won't say it to Barry's face when I get the chance, but sure. What's... Superman started, but Wonder Woman cut him off. Never mind that. Wonder Woman pinched her brow. That won't happen again. We weren't sure what we were up against when Flash started acting differently, and foolishly thought withholding information wouldn't upset him as much as it did. Lot of mistakes for a single week, Jason commented absent-mindedly. Are we done here? I really want to go back to Gotham and faceplant into the closest bed. Dick, Damian, take him back, Bruce said after a second. I want to stay here and continue this discussion, hopefully with a few more League members. Translation, the JLA was in for a tongue-lashing and an overhaul of their rules, to accommodate for identity leaks and holding prisoners in the watchtower. One more thing. Jason looked at Diana again with a smirk. Make sure to tell him about the lasso, because if he finds out later, I don't think anyone can save you from his wrath. And with that, Dick helped him to his feet, Damian supporting Jason on the other side, and they left the room. Now, Bruce turned back to Superman and Wonder Woman with a glower. Care to explain what he meant by that? Back at the mansion, Jason wasn't sure what to think of the Zeta Tube other than subdue panic at the claustrophobic tunnel, tightening his arm slung around Dick's shoulder minutely as it turned on. Nightwing, R1, Red Hood, R2, Robin, R5, the machine chimed, voice echoing through the Batcave. Yep, he definitely hated it. His headache seemed to have quadrupled once his feet hit the floor, making his head feel like it was being split open. Spots danced in front of his eyes, blinking a few times to adjust to the lower lighting. His headache receded just enough to make him aware of his surroundings, more specifically, the familiar figure currently running towards him. Jason! He felt strong arms lift him into the air and away from his brothers, making his ribs twinge painfully before he was set back onto the ground. Sorry, I forgot he had broken ribs. Tim mentioned that, I think. Jason came face to face with Duke Thomas, a relieved, almost giddy smile pulling at his features. Missed you too, Duke. Jason slung an arm around his newest brother's shoulder, leaning his weight on him. Tim Bedard explained everything? Duke shook his head. We're waiting on Babs, Steph, and Cass to get here before we go over everything. But you still giving the league a new one? Tim entered the room holding a pair of crutches. You betcha, Dick replied with a smirk. He won't be back for a while, I'm guessing, so we might as well do a debrief without him. You up for that so soon, Jaybird? After I take a shower. Jason took the crutches from Tim, making sure they were adjusted properly before extricating himself from Dick's grasp. Being held captive for a week isn't good for hygiene, believe it or not. Yeah, go do that. Tim wrapped one arm around Jason's shoulder in a half hug before sliding over to the back computer. Let's see, you have about an hour before the Batgirls return. Dame's already disappeared to get a first aid kit, I think, so I'll just have him put it in your room. That sounded heavenly. After stuff like this, Jason liked to patch himself up as best he could just to get a moment to breathe, away from his siblings' concerned words and affectionate touches. It usually took 30 minutes tops, maybe a bit longer if he had to stitch up a wound. You're a lifesaver, Timbit, Jason said, silently thanking whatever deity led him to his family. We're doing the debrief here in the manor. Living room, Dick cut in. After all this, I think we deserve hot chocolate and a family movie night. Damn right, Jason grinned. Hot chocolate and movies? He should get kidnapped by the JLA more often. Alright guys, and that is the end of Jason Todd's Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Week by Slenderboo. I hope you guys liked it, and see you next video.